My name is Dennis Scholl. I'm the CEO of Light Arts, which is a Miami-based residency program and artist support organization, and we are fortunate enough to be one of the sponsors of this summer's summer series, which of course we all love and never miss. And it's my pleasure today to welcome you to the conversation between collector Beth Rudin DeWoody and artist Maynard Monrow. Maynard was born in Hollywood and went to Cal Arts. He has a conceptual practice working in bronze, neon, marble, and also, and I want to hear more about this today, ready-made cafe boards. I mean, we got to hear some more about that today. And he also has one of the best job titles that I've ever heard. He is the, and I quote, one of the chief creatives of the Beth Rudin DeWoody collection. I want to hear about what that means too. He's represented by. Did he make that up? He was intent about me saying that. So he's represented by Gavlak Gallery, and of course our friend Sarah Gavlak, who's here today. Sarah, give a wave. There she is. But talking about Beth, Beth began collecting when she was 12. What was the focus of her obsession? The Beatles. 10,000 objects later. She's come a long way, I have to say, from John, Paul, Ringo, and George, and is known as one of this country's leading collectors. When I think about Beth, I think about something Adam Weinberg said about her, our good friend, the Whitney director. He said, Beth has a voracious eye and boundless curiosity, and her range of interests is astonishing. And I think that that's fair. I've followed Beth's collecting for many years, and the single word that I would use to describe her is brave. She quite simply goes for it. She doesn't. She's not afraid to lead the way on artists. She's not afraid to lead the way on movements in the art world, and she's not afraid to lead the way on ideas. And I think that her collection looks like nobody else's collection. Her interests, though, extend far beyond collecting. She's curated exhibitions. She's made films. She's produced theater. And if I began to describe her patronage and philanthropic efforts, I'd be up here till Tuesday and nobody would be happy. So let me just touch upon a few of her affiliations. She's involved with the Whitney, the Hammer, the New School, the Glass House, the New York City Police Foundation, Parsons, and of course, West Palm Beach's Norton Museum. And that's among so many others. I just picked and choose the ones that I feel strongly about. Her collecting philosophy has been described as, with more real estate, more art. And the opposite. More art, more real estate. I'm so glad you're here to help me with this. No. And her newest favorite project is one that I'm really excited about, and it is a new space called The Bunker, which opened recently as a private art space in West Palm Beach, and I hope you'll all come to see that at some point. So please join me in welcoming Maynard Monrow and collector extraordinaire, Beth Rudin DeWoody.
Am I already having technical difficulties?
Okay, go ahead.
Are you ready?
Yeah.
Hello?
Hello. We're in the spotlight.
Okay, so I am Maynard Monroe, and I'm happy to be here with Beth DeWoody and represent the collection. We can have a little conversation about what I do and what she does and all the mad fabulousness that goes along with it. Let me start here by asking Beth the question. Let's start at the kind of sort of beginning, Beth. Help us understand how all this mad fabulousness began.
Well, I was a student at the Rudolph Steiner School, so right away, art was very much part of my life, both knitting and sewing and macrameing and drawing, everything. So I always loved art. My parents were not big collectors at all. My mom had a few little things here and there in those days. But I always had a sense of history and loved collecting ephemera. And the Beatles, I loved when they came out. I was 12, and I started collecting all the little Beatles stuff. And I wanted to keep that as a collection because I really believed that, you know, it was important historically these things, whether they be high art or low art, was always important. And I collected magazines and everything. And as a young girl, I took classes at the Art Students League. I had wonderful teachers in high school later. And there was my classical teacher, Gaylord Flory, at Riverdale, who I took art from. And then I took a class at the New School as a high school student, and my teacher was a man named Benny Andrews, Southern black artist from Mississippi, came from a sharecropper family. And the first piece of real art I bought was a drawing of his, which I still have, which I love. And then I had a wonderful young Soho artist teacher at high school who sent our class as kind of our final exam to Henry Geltzahler's show, 1940-1970, Painting and Sculpture. And that was at the Met. It was the first contemporary art show that the Metropolitan Museum had done. Henry Geltzahler at the time was a young curator who loved to shake things up and looked at all this art. And he did this amazing show. And that's really what turned me on to contemporary art. Now, the one problem with that show was, and a lot of criticism, was there was only one woman included, and that was Helen Frankenthaler. But it still was an important show, and that kind of set me on the course of loving art. I went out to school in Santa Barbara, where I didn't do that much art, but I did more film studies and anthropology, and then came back to New York, married an artist, moved to Tribeca in 1975, got to know a lot of artists and that whole art scene, and we started to collect prints from the 20s and 30s, American prints and some English vortices prints, and then started to trade art with different artists, and I started to buy contemporary art more, in the 80s and 90s, and it just kind of accelerated from there because I'm a hopeless collector.
That's a good start. I'm having technical difficulties. Okay. So one thing that has always been an interest to me, Beth, is so many artists, galleries, institutions have benefited from your incredible patronage. What fuels this beyond amazing drive? Because you've been so involved with so many of these different situations. So what is this?
I've always been interested in art by young artists and also historically. So I've collected, abstract work from the 30s. I also, and 50s, 60s, I don't know, there's something that hits me visually. I'm not a particularly scholarly person, so it's not like I go in depth to learn everything about the artist, but it just hits me. And I'm just open to things. I love to just look all over the place. I listen, to people who start telling me about stuff, or curators, you should look at this, or different artists. My kids recommend people, and I'm just constantly taking things in, and some things just hit me. I don't care if they're famous or not. I'm not looking at art as an investment, and I don't just buy the greatest hits. I have a funny story to tell. Years ago, a wonderful woman who does lectures was picked by the Jewish Museum to do their benefit that year, which entailed a lecture and then 3 visits to people's collections. And she would lecture on those collections before people would see them. And she had come to my house. She was, she does these lectures on Rauschenberg and, O'Keeffe and, very well-known famous artists. So she comes to my apartment and she sees all this kind of new art. And she's like looking around and trying to figure out what is she going to talk about. She's looking. And all of a sudden I see her eyes go onto this painting, this piece, which happened to be, looks like a Mondrian. It's an appropriation of a Mondrian. And I looked at her and I go, And it was Tom Sachs. He did, Mondrians out of duct tape. And, I knew exactly what she was thinking, like, finally, there's something I can talk about. So it was very funny. But, I just don't collect that way. I mean, I might have some work in there that are well known, but it's, I don't care. And I love how art works with other art. And I love to help young artists, help their careers and galleries, and I just think it's important.
Yeah, but I'm also quite impressed the way your ears are open, but you look like you're constantly looking, high, low, medium, anywhere. You're just always scavenging and excavating experiences, going to artist studios.
Yeah, I mean, I love to meet the artist and go to their studios. And when I curate shows, I love to do theme shows. And a lot of the themes come out of my collecting. But what I like about the theme show is you can put in different artists, like famous ones, not so famous, young, older artists. I love the fact of putting them all together and seeing how it all comes out.
Absolutely. Now, not that it's your intention, but you have become what I term the reluctant influencer. Can we speak about this a little bit? And you are reluctant about it, and then you have an influence, and it's not your intention, but I hear about it all the time when I'm out in the art world running around like, Beth just got this, we're so happy, May, and like, oh my gosh, she's thinking about getting this and this, blah, 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 and it's fulfilling for me, and it makes me happy, so I'd like to hear how you...
Well, you know, galleries are really not supposed to tell you who's buying their work. But they always do.
Well, they can share it with me, I hope.
No, but they always, no, to anybody, really. I mean, but they always do. Like when I go in a gallery, they'll say, oh, you know, so-and-so, Don Rubel Mira just bought a piece, you know. And I guess it gives it a stamp of approval from a collector. And so I guess people use my name too. And, you know, I'm reluctant, you know, I mean, I don't.
That's what I term it anyway,
Yeah.
the reluctant influencer. It's my own little...
But I'm happy to influence people. I love, you know, talking to young people about collecting, because people will say to me, you know, how do you know what to buy, or how do you, and I just say, you know, you go in and you just develop an eye. You just look all the time. You go around, you listen to people. You see, you know, what the curators are looking at in museums, but you also just, you know, see what appeals to you. And, you know, what appeals to you at one point, later on you might look at it and say, I don't know why I bought that. But it's still, you know, if you look at it as a way of helping artists, then it doesn't matter. You know, we all have what we call our mistakes, but in the end of the day, it's really not a mistake. It's just, you know, maybe you change your taste, or maybe it doesn't fit with what you're doing. Or maybe the artist has done something later that you like even more, and you can kind of trade up to that piece of work, or, you know, so.
I mean, I always enjoy going to museums and galleries with you because it's such an educational experience, both optically and scholarly. Just, we look at everything, we scour, we see so much together and taken in so much. I've learned so much from you. That's been an incredible part of working for the collection, is the education that I have gotten. I mean, whatever Cal Arts gave me, I feel it's been 10 times with you.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you. Okay. So you have been there early on to support many artists when they were in their what I call their artistic infancy. You've assisted them into a sustainable practice and many onto art world notoriety. Talk about this for a second, if you can, with us, your intuition and your instinct.
Well, you know, I have a good friend who's actually going to who's had a gallery in the 80s and 90s, Simon Watson. And he's got an incredible eye, and he's very influential with galleries, you know, finding places for young artists in different spaces. And a few years ago, he and I were doing a lot of studio visits very early on. And one of the places he took me to was Kehinde Wiley's studio. And this was when Kehinde had just finished his studio museum internship and or residency, and he had a studio. He was living in an apartment in Harlem, you know, studio maybe this big. And I bought a beautiful one of his paintings, you know, of his, you know, guys with the Baroque backgrounds. I'd never seen anything like it, and I thought it was fantastic, and it was $5,000. So I said, great, I'll buy it. And of course, we all know what happened with Kehinde, but you know, when I see him, he says, you know, Beth, that $5,000 was more important to me than the money I'm making later, because this kept me going as an artist. It kept me, I could pay the rent, and, so that really was so important to me, and that's what I love to do. And so through Simon, I've found quite a few artists like that. I've been to studios, and another artist who happens to also be African-American artist, Nathaniel Mary Quinn. I saw a group show in a gallery, and I just went right to this piece and loved it. And again, it was $5,000, ironically, and I got it for $4,000. But
Shocker.
But the dealer said to me, he's got such an amazing story. You should go meet him. So I went out to Bed-Stuy and met him and his wife.
I went with you.
Oh, you were with me, right?
Yeah.
And he was fantastic. And we heard this incredible story of, him living in the projects in Chicago and getting a scholarship at his school, and his mother dying, and his father and brothers abandoning him, and just, it's like wrenches your heart. And yet here he was doing this amazing work, and I immediately got him to put a piece in the Whitney art sale that they do to raise money for their ISP program. And I ended up buying it because nobody knew him, bid on it, which I'm thrilled about. And then now he's, been showing with Rona Hoffman and Jeannie Greenberg, and he just got picked up by Gagosian. So, but at the time when I bought it, I didn't care. I didn't know he was in this group show. He had no real gallery, and yet it was a wonderful piece. So those things are amazing to me,
Well, that's what I find impressive, is that you have been so pivotal in early stages of these artists' careers, and your support for them has enabled them to go on and sustain a practice. So
Yeah.
it's quite admirable.
Well, I just consider it a privilege that I'm able to do that. It's just so important.
I like to tag along, too. I feel privileged. So you've been an incredible force of artistic nature. Your passion, your deep convictions in art have been a mark of excellence. I'm told by others that you have been an exemplary stellar board member, i.e. the Whitney Hammer, as Dennis has said, Creative Time, amongst many others. Your guidance, and speak about this for a second too, like what you bring to these boards. I mean, it's quite incredible.
I don't know.
Your stewardship. Oh, it is.
I'm just, I think I'm usually devoted to the leadership and want to help where I can, and love to fund educational programs especially. And ironically enough, a lot of museum boards, not everyone collects contemporary art, like a Whitney or, so I kind of bring that a bit to the table. But I also have connections with people, so I bring in people. I love to network and, connect people with other people and artists, and so.
That is incredible. Your connective way,
Yeah.
your nexus for putting
Yeah.
people together in situations is also quite interesting. So this is an area that I'm quite interested in. One area which you are quite unique is your forward-thinking manner, is you don't shy away from challenging and or provocative works. You are right in there to acquire and celebrate. Let's talk about that for a second, because I find that you are so like, everyone else is going for these safe things, and you're right in there to get like, I want that one, the one that no one else wants to acquire.
Yeah, I don't shy away from nudity and sexual content. Years ago, I got a Sue Williams painting that this dealer, he says, I just can't deal with this painting. And he sold it to me for practically nothing, and it was a painting of a nun holding the baby, the Virgin, Jesus. But then there was I don't know if it was castration or something. I don't know, it was weird, the painting, but I thought it was really cool. I don't know.
Exactly. And the collection.
Maybe it's just my sickness and my personality, I don't know. But, I have works by Tom of Finland that I love, and I guess, let's see, Peter Hujar, a lot of male nudity and female, and I don't know, I think it's just beautiful, the body and stuff, so it doesn't...
It's not even nudity. The collection is chock full of great, content-heavy, inspired work.
Yeah.
It's a privilege for me to work with it, have a hands-on...
So should we talk about the bunk?
We will talk about the
okay.
bunker. Last one, say you're most known as a New Yorker, but you spend much time now in Los Angeles with your family, husband, grandkids, no doubt leaving a distinct mark wherever you go. Speak about it. Is it difficult for you living cross-country now and going back and forth?
The traveling's a pain in the ass. I triangulate. I'm less and less in New York, though I get there for blocks of time. I love being in Los Angeles. I love the art scene out there. I love, going to these neighborhoods that, you're just driving and driving. And I mean, just before I came here, I went to 2 great art studios. One, a young Matt Hooper Schneider, who's going to be at the Hammer in a show. And then I was at CAM, which is the California African American Museum, which is a very small but interesting museum in Exposition Park. And I had seen in their permanent collection this sculpture, and I was like, oh, this is amazing. And I found out it was by an artist named Tim Washington. So I kept asking around. No one seemed to know about him. And then I found out he was like one of the early assemblage artists, but never seemed to attain the fame of some of the others. And I went to a gallery the other day that's in the Granadas, like this old 1929 apartment houses, and which was built, well, not apartment houses, they were built for galleries and artists and stuff. And this Black artist named Suzanne Jackson had a gallery there. She was an artist, and she's now going to be having a show in Savannah. She lives on the East Coast now, but she had this gallery, and Tim Washington was one of the artists. So I said to the guy, oh my God, can you connect me? So he gave me the guy's phone number, and I went over with one of the curators at the Hammer, and it was amazing to see the work. And he's going to have a big one-man show there. So I want to buy some of his work because I just think it's great. And this is what I love about LA. You discover all this, these amazing artists that are kind of under the radar, and the museums are fantastic. And so, and of course I have 3 grandchildren in LA, so that's really what keeps me there a lot. And then, so it's nice to go between all 3 because I love Florida also, and the art scene in Florida is fantastic. You have obviously the great collectors, the Schulls, Rubels, and Marleys, and all sorts of people, and fantastic what's going on. And right. So one place you have the hurricanes, and the other place you have the earthquakes. So you just have to,
All right, should we look at a few slides?
Yeah, let's look at some. So, okay, so I thought to myself, I have all this work. I hate to have it all stored away. I want to get it out. And so with the help of Bert Minkoff, who's here, who's a broker, we found this building. And this is in a kind of not totally finished state yet. But it was a 1925 Art Deco building in West Palm Beach that I thought had been built as a armor's factory to build bullets. But it turns out it was built to build toys, And then during the war, it was turned into a factory to make bullets. So I felt much better learning that. But it's a fantastic building, and it had 2 churches in it, and some real estate office, and a landscape office. So we spent a few years renovating it, and opened it 2 years ago. And we call it the Bunker because it's on Bunker Road. It's not really a bunker, so it's the Bunker Art Space. And I'm just couldn't be more excited. And Maynard and Laura Migden did the initial inaugural curation of it. And then we've had some guests. We had Eric Shiner guest curate and Evie Day last year. So we did about a 50% change. This year it'll be a 100% new show. And so you'll see. So we want to keep going. And
yeah, so it's really great to work in this building and to have this much space to go into the collection and put exhibitions together. I knew the vibes were good when it was like Holy Roller Churches was in there, so I was like, that's great. I love the fact that it was before a toy factory because it's kind of like our big toy box. We get to bring out all the toys and play with them and exhibit them. Although Beth wants to have too many out at one time, I'm like, you can't have all the toys out of the toy box at one time, darling.
No.
Okay. So this is the Lower East Wing, our initial exhibition. And the impetus for this is a lot of this work had never been seen because it was too large to be shown in any of her residential places. It couldn't fit in the elevators or through the front door or anything. So it was great to get it uncrated and out.
Yeah. So you have Jack Pearson that says palm trees, which was perfect for Florida. Alex Hubbard is above.
Bhakti Kier is the ladder.
Yeah, Bhakti Kier, who is married to Subodh Gupta, did the piece there. And then, interesting, this man that's there is all crocheted. And it's a man named Luis Flores, who I met in California at his studio. And he has his wife as a nurse, so she tapes them all up. And then he says, you know, it's a lot of trust because she could just close my mouth and I would die. And he does, it's always self-portraits. And this was the first sitting one he had with a cup of coffee. And I have a great photograph of him sitting next to this, holding a coffee cup. So
he's kind of our DACA,
yeah.
undocumented worker there too.
Yeah, and he's showing with Jeannie, I think, also. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
There's a Sam Gilliam in there. There's a big Nick Cave work of art.
Yeah, with the wheels. That's one view of that. And then, so this is in the middle, they created a platform, and this is kind of the fun kind of children piece. The big horse is Marcel Wanders.
All bronze.
And yeah, that's a bronze. And then the finger is David Shrigley. He did this for that big plinth in London. Trafalgar Square. So this was to help raise money for that. And the bunny on the left is Urs Fischer, which was an edition that was done for
Parquet?
Parquet magazine. All the way to the right is a wooden carved Jim Dine Pinocchio. And then the guys are there, that's John Waters, and it's called Playdate, and it's Manson and Michael Jackson.
Having a play date.
Who are both, were both alive at the time, and now they're both gone. The big brown painting in back is John Armletter, who's having a show right now at the Aspen Art Museum.
So there's a lot of sardonic wit and humor that goes into a lot of our exhibitions, which I truly appreciate.
Yeah. So I realized I had a lot of work that was food related. So we created this food room as part of it. What you're missing is on the right is a big, kind of those metal tables, and it has dirty dishes and a video, and that's by Bruce High Quality Foundation. But all the wallpaper and the paper on the pedestals was created by a group called Fallen Fruit, and they do kind of performance stuff. They actually take fallen fruit and make drinks out of it, and they photographed this at my garden in West Palm, and then made this wallpaper, and then the works are all different people there. There's
Kippenberger and Robert Gober up there, I see.
There's even Man Ray
and Patti Smith.
And
Marilyn
Kim Dingle
Minter.
is the big cake painting in the back, and this wonderful ceramicist from Italy, Cassoni Bertozzi, so all sorts of people.
Madness.
But that's like a very favorite room for people.
Here's another big theme room and
this is the silver room. So, you've got Arik Levy, and you've got the raffle is Hank Willis Thomas, and there's George Rickey and Wolfgang Leib and
that sculpture's
Matt
by
Johnson.
Wim de Vove.
Yeah, and
There's a little
Sylvie Fleury is there.
Westerman.
Anyway,
So these are just some of the rooms we do
Will Delvar.
and ideas of exhibitions.
And then for the second year, Evie Day came in, and she loved the idea of crates, and so she created this room so it looked like you were unpacking and things were all in different crates. So it's just a little view of it. You have to see the whole thing, but anyway, it was really fun with video in there and and then that big curtain, it's all beaded curtain, that's Alex DeCourte.
So
But
Evie wanted to
Evan Penny did the face, and
So she wanted to do an exhibition where she was showing the art as it would look in the back room, in the crates, as one would come into the back room of a museum or a gallery.
yeah. And this was a section that wasn't open the first year, so it was kind of. Oh, so this is not in the bunker anymore. So this is my 7th floor apartment in LA that actually looks very cluttered in this photograph because it was done for a magazine and they kind of put all this work that really wasn't hanging there, like that Sam Gilliam on the bottom is hanging on another wall. So it kind of annoyed me. But anyway, it's fun, but it's very mid-century. I live in a mid-century building and it's all kind of done a little differently now, but that's a Warnerovich up there and
All the James Lee Byer works in the back
James
wall.
Lee Byers and, you know,
The silver chair is
yeah,
Pedro Friedeberg and great.
yeah.
There's
Looks a
just-
little different now.
Yeah, there's I see a
Yeah.
Mark Bradford in there.
Okay, go ahead. And so this is upstairs at our apartment in LA, just the little library area. And that's an Alex Katz portrait of my mother that was done in 1982. And a Ricky Swallow, the 8 thing, and on the right, that abstract with the 3 colors is an artist. It's from the 60s, Claudia Verna from Italy. And anyway,
There's just also Beth's homes and living areas are just chock full of objects and books and gorgeous tchotch and just flea market finds and great works of art. And then to put it all together the way we do is just, it's incredible to have all this at my fingertips to play with. I mean, I quite enjoy making these mosaics that I put together with all of her works.
and this is a living room with my little doggy, Ruse. So you have a Dwayne Valentine resin piece back there. And this wall, it's called the Wall of China, was done by Joel Otterson, who is a wonderful California artist, who took my collection of white pottery that had been in my house in Southampton, which I sold, and he made this wall out of it, which divides the room, and I love that. And behind Dwayne Valentine is a woman named Chana Horowitz. She's a woman who worked, and it wasn't discovered until her 80s, really. You can't really see it here, but these beautiful mathematical drawings. And she was made in LA and California. That kind of revived, brought her career. And she lived to see that, and then she died soon after, but she's a wonderful artist.
There's a Matthew Barney in there. There's a Carol Belvay sculpture. On the back wall, there's a whole
Yeah.
series of Ed Ruscha drawings.
Actually, they're prints,
Pardon
the book
me.
prints, yeah.
So sorry.
And this is in Florida, in the kind of dining area. So you have Tim Hawkinson and
A Noguchi
Noguchi's
sculpture.
piece, and the eyes are Liz Craft. So that's my house. It's a mid-century house in Florida, West Palm.
That's also gorgeous.
And outside, I have some sculpture, and this is Rachel Owens. And it was so funny because I saw this piece, an image of it, and it was in Socrates Park. But I didn't realize how big it was until all of a sudden it was getting shipped out. And my assistant said, we got to get this big truck to take this thing. I thought it was much smaller. But anyway, it's fun out there. And we get these boats that come, because I'm on the Intercoastal, And they're all looking and see this big bird. So I think it's become a tourist attraction just to see.
It's great having the junkyard amongst.
Yeah, it's the junkyard. And this is the library in the house, and just, full of books and stuff and different art.
But it's also another area of like the vast incredibleness of just not art, but our libraries, the libraries are also incredible things to step into and grab books and look at so much. I reference them all the time, whether I'm in New York or Palm Beach.
And this is in the view and living room with, I love mid-century furniture too. And these are Tommy Parzinger lights. And then the bicycle it was a collaborative that I founded at Amsterdam Gallery in a design fair. Their names were Boston and something, but they're all it was all cast.
In silver.
Yeah, in chrome or something. Anyway. And so this is from the Taubman Museum in Roanoke, Virginia. They had asked me to do a show. They wanted to do greatest hits. And of course, I said, I don't have greatest hits, and I'm not interested in that. So I realized I have a very big collection of, I kind of call it Pan-African art, but it's African American, African diaspora, and African. And so they were thrilled to do that. And they picked, about 180 works and did the show there, which turned out to be great in the community. They did a lot of educational programs around it. And there's going to be a very small version in Chicago during the art fair that Theaster Gates is curating. But I think he's taking only 20 artists, I think. But
or 30, yeah.
20 or 30 artists. But so that's Terry Atkins, the piece all the way to the left, and Sam, is that Sam Leva? No, who is that second one? Lamé Jones, who is having a show at Suzanne Veltmetter right now. And
Ebony Patterson
did the floor. She had a very successful show at the Perez in Miami.
Right.
Wonderful, wonderful young artist. And, you've got Henry Taylor in there and Sam Gilliam and a bunch of different artists that are in there. And there's another view here.
David Adjaye did the sculpture in the front.
Yeah.
There's Ndejika Crosby.
And David
to the
Adjaye
right.
is the architect, and he's the one who designed the African Museum, or African History
American Museum in Washington on the Mall.
Yeah, on the Mall, really fantastic. And Aaron Fowler is kind of peeking behind. That's a portrait of his mother way back there. There's an Ndejika Crosby piece in there. So, and this.
At the Norton.
This was at the Norton. Is it? Yeah.
It's your photo show.
Yeah, there was a photograph show at the Norton Museum that Tim Ride curated. That happened a few years ago. It was called Still Moving, so it had some video and still photography.
Of your
Yeah.
photographic collection.
And then Cheryl Brudvon, a year or two before, had curated a show of some of my painting and sculpture called The Triumph of Love. And so.
And that's this here.
Yeah, so she created, and that's
Nicole Eisenman
Nicole
up top.
Eisenman and Condo, and underneath is a Cecily Brown, and so Rob Wynn and all sorts of people, Jim Lambie over there, and Tony Smith on the bottom. But anyway, a bunch of
Building the ziggurat was a great way, we thought, of showing off all these objects and sculptures too. So up top is a Sylvie Fleury gold shopping cart. The adulation of acquisition.
Yeah. Anselm Riley and Los Carpinteros.
A Bruce Conner in there, and Seliger, and the bracelet is great French architect designer Maria Pergay.
Rachel White reads there, yeah.
Right,
Anyway.
there's Lisa Ann Auerbach, woven work in there, and is there a Maynard Monroe in there?
Oh, you're going to
Oh,
see his
yeah,
work
there
in a
is.
minute.
Duh.
Yes, that's right, there is.
Anyway.
Lisa Ann Auerbach.
Yeah,
you said
so
it?
these ziggurats worked well, I thought, for showing off the three-dimensional works and giving them space.
So one of the shows I curated was a door show at Franklin Parish Gallery in New York. So the first one is a door I loaned, which is Rachel White Reed, but then there was different artists who were included in the
There's
show.
a Tom Burr there, the second one I see, and
Yeah. So I realized there's so many artists working indoors. And then, of course, after I did it, I realized there were even more that I didn't include. So
you can never have enough.
you never have enough. And then at Sarah Gavlak's gallery years ago, I did a show called Think Pink. And so that was really fun. It was in her gallery space and also at the Four Seasons Hotel. They put some of the bigger pieces there. And we're planning now for next summer to do Think Pinker. Because again, you realize there's so many artists that are working in pink, but included also, you don't see it here, but Linda Banglis and Jack Pearson and all sorts of
Paul McCarthy and
Paul McCarthy, different
Maria
artists.
Abramovic. It was great works in the show
Yeah,
at Sarah Gavlak's.
Evie Day. And this is just my library in New York, which combines books and art, and there's a Mark Newsom, the Green Lamp, and
Mad fabulousness.
yeah. And everything looks so compressed. I mean, it's weird the way the photograph is.
Yeah.
It's not that narrow. I don't know why it looks like it's like 2 feet wide. But anyway, that's the entryway in my apartment. I know, it's so weird, isn't
Those
it?
chairs are from
I know.
Rietveld
Maybe
Studios,
it's the
those
Worms.
two on the side here.
Yeah, Rietveld and Roxy Payne, and then a Solowit wall piece, and Erica Keck, young artist on the right, and then you can see part of the Carl Andre there, and then in the corner there is Terence Coe piece.
And there's a four-piece calibrated work, 1970, a self-portrait by Chuck Close up there.
Oh, it's not a self-portrait, it's a guy named Bob Israel. It's a portrait of someone else. And then there's
I
Glenn
learn something
Ligon.
new every day.
Yeah.
Thank you. I thought it was.
And this is my dining room in New York. I think these were all done for magazines or something, so you're like,
There's a great
That's it.
Maria Pergay
that's
buffet
Maria
on the
Prepe.
left
And that's
side.
Liza Liu there, and a Sterling Ruby sculpture, and
The video portrait in the back is Robert Wilson, I see.
yeah.
Those candelabras on the table are from Gabriella Crespi. There's a Sterling Ruby, I see.
Yeah. And living room. So, Pergay's chair, and that's Rachel Feinstein up there, and a Rob Wynn, and a Shrigley, Tom Sachs, there's all sorts of artists in
There's a
there.
couple of things to look
Yeah.
at. Yeah. There's a few things.
And-
You can never have enough beauty in a room.
Oh, now we're going to get to Maynard. Yeah. So. Of what? Oh, I don't know. I
I
don't know.
didn't pick them. So you can ask me a few questions, Beth?
Yeah, no, you're going to show your work.
Oh. Okay, I think this piece speaks for itself. This is a bronze work that was shown at Sarah Gavlak's. I'm a text-based person. Everything I work in is text, different materials. There's always like an intelligence, I hope, with my sardonic wit kind of skewed into it.
Yeah, I'm going to do it right.
taken from a famous Woody Guthrie poem. So here are these boards that you were inquiring about, Dennis. So they're basically cafe boards I have custom colored for my likes. Pink, to me, is a great color, subversive. And this sentiment speaks about this country is for all of us and everyone. This is a recent work that was shown. Once again, I'm very influenced by what's happening locally, globally, nationally. This is somewhat influenced by a David Wojnarowicz piece. I do a lot of still life series, taking still lifes, which is conventional pictorially, and making them textural and literal, and making you imagine, because everyone will imagine differently, so everyone creates their own image with it. So it's unique to everyone, how they'll interpret this. This is me eschewing the patriarchy and inserting the matriarchy, which we need more of. I was born in Hollywood, so playing with Ed Ruscha's Hollywood and influenced. And this is my mantra, kind of how I walk through life. Okay, this is one of the Brahms works. I guess they're somewhat hard to read. This one says, I don't know if you can read it, says there's no, is the honor of dissent. And I feel that there's what's happening in the country right now, the dissent and disloyalty are two different things that should never be taken. They're taken out of context. Disloyalty is very different from dissent, and dissent is our honor to have.
I think that's it.
There's one more.
Oh, okay.
Can it? Okay, you can.
Yeah.
For your information, we the people are all immigrants.
Yeah.
So this speaks about, again, everyone feeling part of something.
Okay.
You can ask me a question.
So here's a question. Has your art been influenced or changed since working with the collection, my collection?
Absolutely. To have hands-on experience touching great works of art and the knowledge I take from it completely, yeah.
And what are some of your favorite works or period media style from the collection?
I'm most impressed with your ability to find early atypical examples of work and how that has informed me, these early examples of so many great works of art, the early atypical works of artists.
Which we had a room of as well. What are some of the challenges of working with the collection, transitioning from domestic to the bunker?
Well, in your living situations, I can throw everything out there and mix everything up. Coming to the bunker, it's more curated and theme-based. So, and going to the bunker, the work gets more framed and shaped and formed into the context it is, which is really interesting then, to frame it and shape it and form it into these curatorials.
Okay.
Yeah.
So,
It gives me a great, I have a big palette to work with then, these open spaces to put these collections together. And it's kind of like in-house shopping with you too. Like, it's all available to me.
yeah. Well,
Any questions?
well, before we do questions, I just want to thank AndersonRanch for allowing us to come, and thank Molly and Peter and Dennis and Andrea and everyone who helped us here, because it's extraordinary. It's my first time here and really love it. It's so great, and it's such a great opportunity. And thank Ann Cook for recommending us to come. So, and now, anyone have any questions? I knew you would.
Here comes the mic.
Beth, do you have a long-term plan or aspiration for what might happen with the collection?
Well, it's interesting you say it because there's a lot of works that I want to go to the Whitney, and so we're in conversations about that. But I have to deal with my kids as well, so I have to kind of let them pick and see what they want. There's other institutions, the Norton, I'd like to give to, and the Hammer. I've already made a lot of promise gifts to a lot of these institutions, and so, that's kind of the long-term plan. But, I mean, the kids might want to keep the bunker and keep it as a place and do their own thing, so I have to kind of sit down, and it's like a pain in the ass to worry about all this, figure it out, but
There'll still be a couple of things left over, probably.
yeah. Yes.
Have you ever sold anything?
Rarely, but I have, years ago, I sold some work to help, do my apartment, to decorate it and, buy stuff. And if I do sell, it's usually very established artists. Like I had a Murakami sculpture that I sold, but then I use that money to buy younger artists. But it's pretty rare, but every once in a while. Yes.
What a lovely presentation and what an
Thank.
incredible collection you have. You have 3 grandchildren, right?
Yes.
So could you tell us what your favorite 3 pieces of art are and
No.
why?
Okay. No. Definitely not. I mean, obviously, I have sentimental value with the Benny Andrews because it was the first one, and I've since bought paintings of his work. And he passed away a few years ago, but got to know him a little bit. And but I just love it all, so it's very hard to choose. Yes.
I don't know. Yeah, thank you very much. It's
Oh.
really been a pleasure to see your journey as a collector and a curator. And I'm just wondering, I happen to live in New York City, and I particularly enjoy seeing art in people's personal homes. And what I'm wondering, I know I've been active with the Bronx Art Museum as a contributor, and sometimes they have, as a fundraiser, work together with people who are, private collectors and have their collections in their home to, as a fundraiser. I'm wondering if you ever consider that, say, for
Oh, I
your
do it all the time. I mean, I've had.
Oh, you do?
Oh, yeah, no, I've had groups, I've had the Armory Art Fair groups, VIP things, but I've had a lot of museum groups come through all the time.
Oh,
Yeah.
wonderful.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Right there?
Thank you. By the way, I did have the pleasure of seeing your bunker. It's amazing. It was
you.
very exciting to see it. The question I have for you, you both have this wonderful working dynamic together. What started that journey of you both working together?
I'm trying to remember, was it Sarah? Did you introduce me?
No.
Who introduced us? No.
It was the Tibetan girl.
Oh, that's
Searing.
right, Searing. There was a young girl, she wasn't Tibetan, but she had a Tibetan name.
Oh, right.
But she introduced us originally, and then Sarah was working with Maynard, and Maynard has an amazing ability to, look at stuff and place them. And, I love to collect and curate, and I go to shows and I do my thing, but it's always wonderful to have someone else's eyes in your own collection and place stuff. And when we were doing the California apartment, my husband, who's a photographer and artist, I said, well, Maynard's going to come and just hang the art and place furniture and stuff for us. And he was like, we don't need that. I said, you know what, honey? You could change anything you want, but it's always nice to have it there and done, and then you have it out and whatever. And of course, and he came, and he didn't change that much, I got to say. I mean, it looked amazing. So, it's always wonderful to have those eyes there because it's different things, I consider myself somewhat creative, but I'll look at something he did, and I go, wow, I never would have thought of that. So,
Don't get between the husband and the wife, though.
I know. That's right.
But my recollection is I was working for a collection in LA, and Beth, you were after me, like, May, come to New York. I want you to see my collection. And I was resistant. And then you said, I'm bringing you to New York. I want you to see the collection. So I came to New York. I saw the collection. I've known about the collection. I didn't know the breadth of the collection. So after seeing it, I was like, whoa, ouch, fabulous. Here I go. I went back to LA, and my friends were like, you're moving to New York, aren't you? And I said, absolutely, yes. And that's the journey started then. I started working for Beth in 2009. I'm in my 10th year, and it's been glorious.
Yeah, call him the star fluffer.
Yeah. So, answer another question about the title of Chief Creative or Co-Chief Creative. I'm shy of the word curator because I have such esteemed, for curators. I don't want to really call myself that, so I feel more comfortable referring to myself as one of the chief creatives. So
Yeah.
just so you know that. It's just,
And
it's more, for me, it's more
I basically
assuming.
buy my own art, though of course, I'm very open. Maynard will say, I just saw this great thing, you should look at it. I get sent things, my kids send me, everyone. So I don't really use an art consultant or anything, but I definitely love having someone curate from my collection.
A Maynard is a terrible thing to waste.
Exactly. Anything else?
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.